Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we just got a new OCG ban list. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out this new ban list. So I love checking out the OCG ban list because sometimes we see these moves happen in Master Duel and in the TCG later on, which is really interesting to be able to check out and see what they're doing over in the OCG. So this ban list is actually going to take effect in January 1st, 2025. So let's go ahead and see what's moving on this ban list. So first off, for the first card that is banned, it's Abyss Dweller. It's actually really interesting that they would ban Abyss Dweller because it's a really good floodgate card that basically just shuts down the graveyard for rank 4 decks. So that might be a Ryzel hit, which is really interesting because Ryzel is currently the best deck in the OCG. And that's actually a very interesting ban right off the bat. And that's the only ban card that we have for this particular list. So for the limits, we have Artifact Scythe going from unlimited to limited, which I don't feel like really does anything anyways, because they have Artifact Sanctum and they have plenty of ways to be able to get to Artifact Scythe. So I feel like this card should have just been outright banned like it is in the TCG, but that's a really interesting move that they would actually just limit Artifact Scythe. I feel like it should probably just be outright banned. We then have EXT Ryzel, which is really interesting that they would actually go ahead and limit that card. I feel like that's a very justified limit because it's the best starter in the deck, and it's a really good move to be able to kind of balance the deck because currently that's the best deck in the format, and it's absolutely broken, and that's the best basically starter in the entire deck. So you can send like a copy of Aggregator from your extra deck to the graveyard, summon this card out to your side of the field, and then go full combo, which is absolutely broken. So that kind of puts a little bit of hit against Ryzel, which is actually really, really good. For the next one, we have Gold Sarcophagus going from semi-limited to limited. I feel like they just moved this to semi-limited, which is interesting that they would just move it back to limited, but this is basically a Malice hit because Gold Sarcophagus is full combo for Malice, which is insane. So that's actually a very interesting move that they would actually just go ahead and re-limit this card when it was just previously put to 2. So that's a very interesting move. Allure of Darkness going from unlimited to limited. I do not agree with this move. I feel like it should stay at 3. Malice does make great use of it, but everybody knows that plays Malice, that Dormouse your copies of White Rabbit, and then Underground is the best starters. Allure is great in the deck, but the majority of TCG lists aren't even playing Allure. They're playing other engines inside of the deck to basically make it even better. So I don't feel like Allure is a really good hit in the OCG, but it's really interesting that they would go ahead and limit Allure because it's an insane draw card, but I don't feel like it's the right hit for Malice. I feel like basically putting Gold Sarcophagus back to 1 is a good hit, and then hitting other generic Cyvers cards might be it, or even putting cards like Dormouse to 2 would have been a better hit. But this is not it. Hitting Allure of Darkness hits so many other decks, so I do not agree with this hit. And I think, honestly, it's a bad hit for the OCG. We then have Gozen Match going from semi-limited to limited. That's a great move. I feel like the majority of floodgates or all floodgates need to be either limited or banned. So I feel like this is a pretty good hit to go ahead and just instantly limit Gozen Match. I feel like this card should have been at 1 a long time ago, and it's a really good move. We then have Cyberjar going from banned to limited, which it's already been in the TCG. We have it at 2 now, and it's done nothing. So I feel like it's totally fine for this card to go basically back to 3. I don't feel like it's going to do anything at 3, but I feel like this card going from banned to limited, I feel like the TCG's already shown the OCG that Cyberjar is not going to do anything, and it's totally fine to bring this card back. So great move. We then have for the semi-limited section, we have 7th Tachyon going from unlimited to semi-limited, which is really interesting. I feel like this card probably should have just been limited, and they maybe should have left EXT to semi-limited, and they should have reversed this, which would have been really a lot better, but I don't know. I feel like this card maybe should eventually be banned or at least limited because it's an insane search card that just gives Ryzel so much utility to be able to search out the exact cards they need. So I feel like this card is absolutely broken to be able to use, and I feel like it should probably be moved later on. We're not getting this card until Maze of the Master, and Ryzel is already being a tier 1 deck mixed with Fiendsmith. So later on, we'll probably get a ban list in like April to be able to handle that. And I feel like this might be an interesting card to be able to move on our list later on. on. But for now, I feel like this is okay for the OCG to see how it shakes up. But I feel like EXT is probably the best card in the deck to be able to hit. But this card also probably should have been limited as well. We then have Monkey Board being semi-limited. I feel like this card could probably go to 3. It's totally fine. It's just semi-limited. Chronograph Sorcerer, again, I feel like it just went to 3 in Master Duel as well. It's done nothing. They do have Electromite, but I feel like it's totally fine to move this card to 3. It's just insane. Masterpiece going from limited to semi-limited. Again, probably could go to 3. I don't know anybody that's going to be playing this card at 3. I feel like it's probably should just go to 3 anyways. It's currently at 2 now, but I feel like it's one of those cards you either played at 1 or 2 in your deck. You never really play 3 copies of Masterpiece because it's going to brick. So I feel like this card could go to 3. Morphing Jar is insane. Okay, Morphing Jar going from limited to semi-limited is more insane than them hitting or moving Cyber Dragon from, or Cyber Jar, excuse me, moving Cyber Jar from banned to limited, because this card is so much more broken because it fixes your hand and you can basically use Empty Jar, which is crazy powerful. So this is actually a really weird move. I feel like Morphing Jar should have been one of those cards that should have just stayed at 1 eternally, because being able to just flip it and draw 5 is insane. And there's so many easy ways to be able to use this card's effect, especially going first, to be able to just flip it up and then draw 5, discard your whole hand, draw 5 and fix your whole hand, or be able to just set everything, flip it, and then get a fresh hand, which is insane. We then have Snatch Steal going from limited to semi-limited. I don't think it's really seen that much play in the TCG either, so I feel like this card's fine. I feel like it's one of those cards should have probably stayed at limited, but it's fine to move this card to 2. It's really insane to actually see Snatch Steal come from BAM and nobody really play it and limited except for like Makonko, because Makonko can instantly get this card, and it's a really good turbo tech in Makonko to be able to take your opponent's monster, and it's really insane to be able to do that, but I feel like this card's probably okay. We then have Zodiac Barrage. Zodiac Barrage being semi-limited is actually really insane because it's going to turn Zodiac into basically an engine again, which is really interesting overall. And I feel like they do have Dryden as well. I feel like they have Dryden at 1, which is insane to actually see Dryden and Zodiac Barrage back in the format. But overall, this is actually a really interesting move, and I really want to see where this goes, because we actually got this card back in the TCG back to 1 on the last list. So I'm really interested to see what this card does in the OCG at 2. We then have for the Unlimits, we have Eva. I feel like this card happened in the TCG. It's not really that big of a deal. Pankratops, I feel like this is not a big deal. Again, we had this in the TCG. Pankratops is great. Fenrir is better. But in the OCG, I believe Fenrir is at 1, and this is pretty insane for a side deck option for a lot of different decks to be able to just play Pankratops, to be able to pop a card, because you can special summon it, pop a card, which is really good. Malicious going to 3. I feel like it's one of those cards that's overstayed its welcome in the semi-limited section. It should definitely be at 3. Heroes haven't really been topping that much recently, but it's one of those cards that's an easy hit to put heroes in check, because you can put this card back to 2 and then they play a brick. MX Saber Invoker, I do not know why we still not have this card in the TCG, but it's crazy that they now have it at 3 in the OCG, but we don't even have this card back in the TCG. I don't think it's done very much in the OCG, but it's really interesting to actually see this card go to 3. We then have Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer, going to 3. We've had this card for a very long time. I do not understand why they still had this card semi-limited. Maybe it's because of Electromite. I don't know. But this card should have definitely gone to 3 a long time ago in the OCG. Like a long time ago. Because this card at 2 is just kind of weird. Because you're only ever going to play it at like, I mean, like honestly, what are you going to do with this? In Draco Slayer, you're going to play this at 3, maybe 2 copies on Draco Slayer. But with Electromite, maybe it's insane. But I haven't seen Draco Slayer top in the OCG in a long time, so it's actually a really interesting move that they would move this card to 3 when it probably should have already been at 3 a long time ago. Same thing with Chronograph Sorcerer, same thing with Masterpiece, and this card. I feel like this is kind of one of those weird moves that they're just moving something so they can move something, maybe? I don't know. We then have Pearly Delicious Memory. This actually is very powerful, and I do anticipate seeing Pearly top a little bit in the OCG now, because Delicious Memory is like the best one to step in a plump, and it's really, really good in this particular, like it's really like one of their best cards in the entire deck. So this is actually a really good move for Pearly, as Pearly hasn't done much recently, and so this is actually a really good move overall. We then have Branded Opening going from semi-limited to unlimited. It's kind of one of those cards with Branded Fusion at 1. It's not that big of a deal, but overall, the takeaways from this is, could we see this in the TCG? Yes, we could see Abyss Dweller get banned in the TCG because it's a floodgate, and I think it could actually easily happen in the next format, that we could actually see Abyss Dweller be banned in the TCG. Scythe, they should have banned it. EXT is the correct hit for Rizal. Gold Sarcophagus should have stayed at 1. Allure is a bad hit for a lot of decks. Gozen should have been hit. Cyberjar should have been like at 3 already in every format. These are great moves overall, but overall, to be honest with you guys, kind of a lackluster list. I'm going to be honest. This is one of those times, I think it's one of those moves that's kind of like, a lot of the moves are kind of obvious, but it doesn't have a wow factor to me. Like, it doesn't have a really big wow factor to me. And I know that kind of seems weird, but this is kind of a wow factor, I guess. But I feel like this isn't that big of a deal. Because losing 1 copy of this is not that big of a deal for Rizal, and then they still have 1-card combos with Sword and Ice, so it doesn't really do that much. Like, the deck is still ridiculously consistent, but if they would have hit this, if this would have gone to 1 as well, this would have been the correct move, and I feel like it would have put the deck in check and would have put Malice at the top tier, even if they would have hit Allure. Like, even with Allure limited, I don't feel like, I feel like this is really bad. I feel like this is a really bad hit overall. These don't really matter all that much, except for maybe Delicious Memory. And these, like, from here down, don't really matter either. This is the only one that really matters for the meta. And it's a great move, but it's just not enough. It's not enough to handle the deck. And overall, I feel like the deck is just, I feel like it's a good list, but it's not, I feel like they could have banned more cards, to be honest, or brought something else back. Like, they brought back Cyberjar, but that's kind of like, who's going to use it? Like, it's one of those overdue cards. So I feel like they're kind of moving some of these cards just to move them to make the list larger. But overall, okay list, I guess. I guess it's something. Could I see any of this happening in the TCG? This could happen in the TCG. Yes, I do think this could happen in the TCG. I haven't seen a lot of this happening in the TCG recently. A lot of Abyss Dwellers outside of Rizal, but it's kind of one of those just utility cards that I could see getting banned overall. But it's crazy to think that they still have Baron, Borreload, Savage Dragon, and Appaloosa, and they haven't touched any of those 3 cards in the OCG. I could have seen any of those 3 cards getting banned in the OCG because it actually is really good in the TCG and handles a lot of stuff, and they didn't hit OSS. They did not hit Original Sinful Spool Snake Eye, and I feel like that should have been banned. Or Sanctifier. I'm going to say it until, like, they do it in every single format. Sanctifier needs to be banned because we've already seen in the TCG that they're just changing it out for Vice King Requiem. Like, it doesn't even matter because you can just hand your opponent a Vice King Requiem, and it's a Dark and it's a Fiend, and they can just instantly do it anyways. So branded, that's the way you address branded, and then you could put Branded Fusion at like 3. It wouldn't even matter if you hit ban Sanctifier. You could have Branded Fusion at 3. And so I feel like they didn't hit Original Sinful Spool Snake Eye on the OCG. They didn't hit Sanctifier, and they didn't address, in my opinion, they didn't address Rizal enough, because yes, they hit their best starter, but they didn't take away this, and this is Rhoda, and that's how you address the deck. That is exactly how you address the deck, is you ban 7 Techium to be able to stop them. So overall, okay list. I feel like it's a lot of like moving just to move, being honest, but overall really interesting. Do I see any of this happening in the TCG? Yes, I do see Masterpiece coming back. They're going to reprint it in Stampede. I think this card is going to come back. I think it's going to start at 1, it's going to go to 2, and then 3, just like they're doing in the OCG. It's at 3 in Master Duel. It's a really interesting deck, and overall I think it's a great deck for Master Duel because it's a great starter deck for a lot of people to be able to pick it up and just play it, and it's a very player-friendly deck that if you want to play a deck, you can play it very easily because it's basically just Floodgates and Summon Masterpiece, and that's it. The rest of this is kind of okay. I think Invoker could come back. Invoker could definitely come back in the TCG. That'd be a great move, but a lot of this we already have. Like Eva's already at 2 in the TCG. Pankertops is already at 3. Malicious is already at 3. Luster Pendulum's already at 3. Delicious Memories at 2. Branded Openings at 2. Like, we already are at 3. We already have a lot of these moves already, so a lot of this, I don't feel like we're there yet with 7 Techion because it's not even out, but I think they're going to give this until maybe like September list to be able to move this in the TCG. But overall, really interesting. I feel like it's a really interesting list, but this is weird. They should have just banned this. I don't understand why they put this at 1. Like, who's playing more than 1 copy of Scythe anyways? So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely tell me what you think of this list down in the comments down below. And do you see any of this happening in the TCG? I actually do. I do see some of this actually happening in the TCG. I could see them actually banning Dweller. That's the one big takeaway from this, is that Abyss Dweller is no more in the OCG. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and there's soon come part notification squad. We'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.